Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., two former liberal Democrats, both got votes of approval today as they are tapped to join the Trump administration. The votes mostly went along party lines, with Democrats voting against their former party mates and Republicans voting for them. Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation as Director of National Intelligence and RFK Jr.'s advancement as HHS Secretary represent major shifts from past leaders who held those positions. Joining me to discuss this and more, Jesse Byrnes, Senior Editor here at The Hill. Let's talk about Gabbard first. As Director of DNI, she's going to be the leader of the U.S. Intelligence Committee. This role was established in the wake of the intelligence failures that preceded 9/11. Gabbard served in the National Guard, was deployed to the Middle East, but has no formal experience in intelligence, has never run a government agency or department. Is there a risk to appointing someone like Gabbard to serve in this role?
Well, President Trump picked her because she was an outsider when it came to the intelligence community. Trump has long railed against the intelligence community going back years, and he views Gabbard. She has years of experience at the Army National Guard, but no experience in intelligence. And so she is viewed as this disruptor when it comes to her new position. She has a huge mandate now. She is leading 18 intelligence agencies. She's going to be integral for the president's daily brief. Also, dealing with transparency when it comes to the different intelligence agencies. She's already signaled plans to perhaps scale down some of their staffing, send people back to their individual agencies instead of coalescing at the DNI. But it's a huge role, and certainly Trump looks at her experience or lack of experience as an asset in this case.
Is there a risk, though, if something bad, God forbid, were to happen, that would open up Trump to attacks, that you appointed somebody to this crucial intelligence role that has no intelligence experience?
That's certainly going to be something that he would be attacked for. Democrats have warned against her about her lack of judgment. They view her past statements on the Patriot Act, on Russia, as kind of falling into traps that they believe are set. And so they certainly have a lot of concerns, but there will be room for her, I think, in terms of trying to set the president's agenda. And he's been very vocal. He really wants her in this role.
Let's talk about RFK Jr. Like Gabbard, a former Democratic presidential candidate, vaccine skeptic, critic of big pharma and the food industry, former environmental lawyer. Not exactly what you would expect on the resume for a Republican cabinet nominee. How much of a wrecking ball do you expect him to be at HHS?
Yeah, well, certainly he is coming into this with big plans. He's already forecasted he wants to dismantle or shut down entire offices at the FDA. Some Democrats have actually praised him in his agenda when it comes to trying to clean up American food, try to get out some of the toxins that are currently in the system. And so he's obviously faced a lot of blowback over his vaccine views, and he's tried to thread the needle with that. He is going to, again, be this kind of disruptor at HHS. I think that that should not be played down at all, because he does anticipate wanting to come in the door and make big change. But there's going to be some oversight with Congress, and we'll see how much pushback he might get from Republicans, especially over things like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, if they try to touch anything like that.
Over 50 lawsuits have been filed so far challenging Trump administration action. So far, at least in preliminary tests, they have been successful. And so far, the Trump administration has largely complied with court orders. But there are hints that the administration may not continue to do so. Vice President Vance tweeted that judges aren't allowed to control Trump's legitimate power. Trump was actually asked about this yesterday. Let's take a listen.
I always abide by the courts, always abide by them, and will appeal. But appeals take a long time.
Constitutional crisis is the phrase of the week here in Washington, but Alexander Bolton has some interesting reporting from Republicans who, behind closed doors, say they are increasingly concerned that Trump will eventually begin to ignore court orders and the ramifications for that. What do you make of those concerns?
I think they're very real. We've seen a few senators this week, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, James Lankford from Oklahoma, come out and say they want the administration to follow the law. They expect the administration to follow the law. But it's certainly on everyone's radar right now. Just taking a step back, the guardrails that are in place, we've seen a lot of debate over the separation of power. and concern even among some Senate Republicans that Trump might be trying to step into Congress' power of the purse when it comes to appropriations by shutting down full agencies that Congress has already appropriated funding for. And so I think the same thing with the courts. At large, lawmakers are worried about the executive overstepping, trying to step into the judicial's purview. And Trump has said they're going to follow the law, but likely many of these issues are going to be appealed, and some of them could be appealed all the way to the Supreme Court. Certainly on things like birthright citizenship, it's going to be appealed to the highest court in the land, and not many Republicans expect that one to be upheld, but some of these other ones could be.
The House Budget Committee released its text today of the budget resolution it plans to move forward with. It sticks with this Trump vision for one big, beautiful bill. $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, $2 trillion in mandatory spending cuts, $4 trillion increase in the debt limit. You think this is going to thread that needle in the House that Johnson has been working so diligently on?
Well, they've actually released something, which is a big start after a couple of punts, and they're looking to now mark it up at the end of this week. This at least is kind of keeping with that rather ambitious timeline of advancing this through the committee by the end of the month. So at least it's possible before they move it to the full House. But there's going to be a lot of wrangling involved. There are going to be Republicans who are skeptical about this. The fiscal hawks, they want steeper cuts. They included the $4 trillion increase in the debt limit, which is a big issue later in the year that lawmakers were already looking at having to deal with. So they are going to have to grapple with this. The Senate's not wasting any time. They're plowing ahead, and so they're going to have to reconcile the differences.
First glance at this House plan, looks like spending, not cuts.
Well, there is, when it comes to the $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, that also essentially forces the administration to pick and choose what they want. Those 2017 Trump tax cuts that expire at the end of this year, there's a lot of debate over whether they are going to increase all those. There's talk about tax on tips and other proposals that Trump has put forward. All this costs money, and so if they are trying to reduce the federal spending at the same time they're talking about increasing the debt, these things go hand in hand.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell back on Capitol Hill today. It's interesting. It comes as President Trump has been advocating, or at least advocated in one post on his social media platform, that interest rates should come down to coincide with his plan for tariffs. Is the independence of the Fed going to survive a second Trump turn?
It's a great question. We've seen Jerome Powell say, he's not stepping aside. At the same time, we're in this situation where interest rates are higher than they were in the first Trump presidency at the same point. And so Trump's having to grapple with this. It means that the prices of mortgages are much higher than people were having to deal with in the first Trump term. And so, that is going to be an issue. Trump has long railed against interest rates, saying they should come down to try to foster greater economic growth. And to some extent, he's going to try to put the pressure on Powell. Now, whether Powell listens to that or not is a totally different question.
And Powell's term is up in 26, so could possibly replace him then. Yeah. Be interesting to see who. Ron Paul being floated as a possible name. I don't know if that's serious, but it will be interesting to see where they go with that. That's all I have for you, Jesse Byrnes. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Drew.
Republicans are considering ending one of Wall Street's favorite tax breaks, the carried interest loophole. The tax break allows managers of investment funds like private equity firms and hedge funds to list their income as capital gains, which subjects them to lower tax rates. The loophole has long been supported by Republicans and could set up another fight on the way to a finalized tax bill. It's been debated by lawmakers for over a decade and has come close to being canceled during previous legislative battles. The move is supported by President Trump, with some Republicans in the House saying it could help improve public perception of their tax law. FEMA under fire after the agency confirmed that Florida residents impacted by Hurricane Milton were passed over by workers for having a Trump campaign sign in their yard. NewsNation's Brian Entin has details.
We heard rumblings of this happening, but now the official report is out from the Office of the Special Counsel, who looked into these allegations that there were FEMA workers not walking up to houses that had Trump signs, not helping the people with Trump signs. And this new official report confirms that it was actually happening. The allegations first began circulating in October after Hurricane Milton ravaged Florida. According to the new report, a FEMA supervisor named Marnie Washington told the FEMA workers to avoid the houses with Trump signs while canvassing neighborhoods to assist hurricane survivors. This new report makes clear that none of the crew cited any safety concerns at houses with Trump signs. The OSC says the FEMA manager violated what's known as the Hatch Act, which prevents federal employees from political activity. The violations include engaging in political activity while on duty and using one's official authority or influence for the purpose of interfering with or affecting the results of an election. Now, that FEMA manager has since been fired. But remember, it wasn't just reports of this in Florida. There were other rumblings also in North Carolina of people who felt like FEMA was not helping them because of their political beliefs. Back to you.
Thank you, Brian Entin. A change of policy that could impact how you enjoy a beverage. In today's Political Minute, NewsNation Chief Washington correspondent Blake Berman breaks down President Trump's new order on plastic straws.
An executive order that's causing a bit of a stir. I'm Blake Berman, host of The Hill on NewsNation. President Trump reversing a Biden-era policy to phase out single-use plastics, like plastic straws, in the federal government. The president speaking from the Oval Office Monday.
We're going back to plastic straws. These things don't work. I've had them many times, and on occasion they break, they explode. If something's hot, they don't last very long, like a matter of minutes, sometimes a matter of seconds. It's a ridiculous situation.
The order also calls for the federal government to look into the use of paper straws nationwide. Some states, however, have a different approach. There are more than a dozen states with policies on the books either banning or restricting plastic straws. I'm Blake Berman, and this is the NewsNation Political Minute.
And you can find more news and analysis from Blake and our colleagues 24/7 on NewsNation. To find NewsNation on your screen, go to joinnn.com. That's today's Daily Debrief. I'm Drew Petrimoulx. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hill's YouTube channel. And come back here soon for the intersection between politics and policy.